In the year 2164, humanity thought it had tamed the stars, until Verelia went dark. Entire colonies vanished without a trace. No screams, no bodies, just silence. Now, a soldier with a haunted past and a scientist with a desperate hope must face a queen unlike any the galaxy has ever known, one who doesn't conquer with weapons but with whispers. Will he resist her, or become her greatest weapon? If you are new here, then please subscribe this channel and show thumbs up by liking the video. Now let's move toward this wonderful story. In the year 2164, on the far edge of known space, the planet Verelia gleamed like a blue-green jewel. It had once been lifeless rock, but after years of terraforming it had become a thriving colony. Farmers planted fields. Children laughed on playgrounds under the shade of domed shelters. For a while it seemed like a new paradise for humankind. But then, the silence came. At first it was just a few dropped transmissions. Then whole outposts stopped responding. Supply ships arrived to find entire villages abandoned, their food still on plates, their tools left mid-task. There were no signs of struggle, no blood, no bodies, only eerie empty spaces and a feeling that something unseen was still watching. Earth's leaders, unwilling to risk more lives, sent a small elite team to investigate. They called themselves Unit Greyfall. Leading them was Commander Halden Rook, a seasoned soldier with silver threads in his dark hair and lines on his face that told of many battles fought and many friends lost. Halden was not a man who smiled often. He had the calm, quiet edge of someone who had survived too much and didn't talk about it. With him were 4 others. Dr. Leona Vell, the team's science officer, had eyes full of quiet warmth and a sharp mind that noticed everything. She believed in understanding things before destroying them. Then there was Tess Arlo, a young scout with sharp instincts and nerves of steel. Once Halden's student, she now moved like a shadow and trusted her gut more than maps. Brannick, nor the team's demolitions expert, looked like he was carved from stone and spoke mostly in sarcastic grunts. And lastly, Orrin Gale, a tech prodigy barely out of his 20s, had a talent for computers and a habit of talking to his equipment, like it could talk back. Their ship, the Wren, landed at dusk near the last known location of the missing colonists. The sky above Verelia was a strange, swirling purple, as if the planet had stolen colors from a dream. Mountains rose like black teeth around them, and just beyond the hills, strange pulses of light flickered from a massive structure embedded in the cliffside. It wasn't human-made. The team approached cautiously, weapons ready. The closer they got, the more wrong everything felt. The trees were silent. The air buzzed faintly, like a far-off hum you couldn't locate. Halden said nothing, but he placed his hand on the sidearm at his hip and kept it there. Inside the alien structure they found twisted tunnels lit by soft green light. The walls were warm to the touch and slightly wet, as if the entire place breathed. Strange vines pulsed with glowing veins. The air was thick, humid and heavy with the scent of something sweet and rotten. And then they found them. The colonists were still alive, barely. Lying in rows against the walls, many were half-conscious, their skin gray and their limbs elongated, in unnatural ways. Their eyes fluttered open as the team entered and they whispered in unison, "She sees you now." Leona knelt beside one of them, her hands trembling as she examined the changes in their bones. Their blood. "They're being rewritten," she whispered, horrified. "Their DNA is being changed." Suddenly from the shadows above, creatures dropped. Not fully human, not fully alien. Their skin was armored, their mouths too wide, and their eyes glowed a strange amber. The battle erupted instantly. Brannick threw a charge that sent 2 of them flying. Tess moved like lightning, her blade flashing. Orrin covered Leona while she dragged a half-transformed colonist to safety. Halden fought like a man possessed, eyes scanning for something he couldn't yet name. And then he saw her. At the far end of the chamber, atop a raised platform of black stone, she stood. Taller than any human, her body shimmered like oil, scales catching the light in dark rainbows. Her eyes were deep gold, ancient, and knowing. She watched the chaos with a calm that chilled Halden to his bones. The alien queen. She didn't speak. Not with words. Instead, Halden felt her, a pressure in his skull, a soft whisper in a language he somehow understood. She stepped forward slowly, graceful like a predator who knew she could not be touched. Around her, the creatures knelt. Even the colonists, still half-human, turned their heads toward her in longing. Halden raised his weapon. "Stop!" he barked. His voice cracked the silence like thunder. She smiled. With a flick of her clawed hand, one of the colonists convulsed, crying out as his body twisted further. Leona screamed his name. Tess cursed. The team formed a circle, weapons aimed in all directions. But Halden didn't fire. He couldn't. His hand was shaking, and in that moment, as their eyes locked, he felt something he didn't expect. Not fear. Not rage, recognition. She stepped back into the shadows, leaving behind only that chilling smile. The moment passed, and the creatures vanished with her. The team stood among the damaged and the dying, uncertain what they had just witnessed. Halden didn't speak for a long time. When he did, his voice was quiet. "She knows we're here, and she's waiting." And with that, the shadows over Varelia deepened. The silence inside the alien structure was the kind that crawled under your skin and stayed there. Every step the team took echoed too loud. The walls seemed to breathe, pulsing faintly with light that came from nowhere. After the attack in the chamber, the team had no choice but to move deeper. There was no going back now. The entrance had collapsed behind them. The only way was forward, into the unknown. Commander Halden Rook led the way, weapon drawn, eyes sharp. But something about him had changed. Since his moment of eye contact with the alien queen, he had been quieter, more tense. His team noticed, especially Dr. Leona Vell. She watched him carefully, scanning his movements like she might scan a blood sample. Halden had always been tough, but now there was something else, something uncertain. The team moved through a long hallway where the walls shimmered like black glass. Inside those walls, shadows shifted as if something was watching them from within. Oren, the young tech expert, muttered about interference on every frequency. "It's like the building itself is jamming us," he said, frowning at his scanner. Or worse, listening. They passed empty rooms filled with strange equipment, like laboratories from another world. Pools of glowing liquid sat undisturbed in cracked containers. Vines covered everything, pulsing like veins, and from time to time, they seemed to twitch as if they had a mind of their own. In one chamber, Leona stopped and knelt beside a glowing panel. She ran a scanner over it and frowned. "It's not just tech," she said. "This place is alive. It's part machine, part organism, like it was grown, not built." Oren pointed to a dark stain on the floor. "That's blood, human blood." They all turned quiet. The silence grew heavier, deeper. Inside, the air grew warm and thick. Their breath came harder and sweat dripped down their backs. Brannick Noor, the demolitions expert, wiped his forehead with a grunt. "Feels like we're walking inside something's lungs," he said, "and it doesn't like us here." They reached another chamber, larger than the rest, shaped like a circle. In the center stood a pillar, glowing blue at the top, pulsing in slow waves. Around the base lay old human gear, helmets, rifles, torn patches from colony uniforms. But no bodies, just the gear, like people had simply stepped out of their clothes and vanished. Tess Arlo crouched near one of the rifles. "I knew this model. It belonged to the local rangers." She paused. "They didn't even fire. Not one shot." Leona walked to the pillar and placed a hand on it. Her eyes widened. "It's transmitting something, low frequency. Could be sonic or psychic. Maybe both." Oren's voice was soft. "Do you think it's what's changing them? The colonists?" Leona nodded. "It's not just a virus, it's a signal, a message that rewrites their minds first. Then their bodies follow." Brannick growled. "So she doesn't just kill people, she absorbs them. Suddenly, a loud chime echoed through the chamber, and the pillar turned red. A new corridor opened with a slow hiss. The team exchanged looks, weapons raised, and stepped inside. The hallway was darker now. The walls narrowed, pressing closer, the breathing sound growing louder. Then they saw the writing. Not human, not any language they knew. But when Halden looked at it, his eyes widened. He stepped forward and touched one of the symbols, tracing it slowly with a finger. "I've seen this," he whispered. "In my dream." Leona stiffened. "You're dreaming about her?" He nodded. "She speaks to me, or shows me things. I don't know which. I can feel her, like she's in my head." Oren paled. "That's not normal, Commander." "I know," Halden said. But he didn't seem scared. If anything, he looked calm. The corridor ended at a door. It opened slowly to reveal a chamber with a tall throne of bone-like material. Lights glowed beneath the floor, soft and blue. On the throne, a strange figure sat slumped. It looked human once, now partly changed. Its limbs were longer, fingers clawed, skin metallic and smooth. It was still alive, breathing shallowly. Tess gasped. "It's one of the missing captains." The figure looked at them with wide, frightened eyes. It opened its mouth. "Run," it croaked. "She's coming." A distant sound rose like wind through steel, or a scream stretched too long. The lights went red. The walls shook. "Move." Halden shouted, grabbing Leona's arm. The team turned and fled as something behind them began to roar. A massive shape moved through the corridor. The Queen's soldiers. They didn't run. They slithered, and their eyes glowed gold. The team barely made it to a sealed door, which Oren managed to close with seconds to spare. Behind it, the sound of claws scraping metal echoed like a threat. Breathing hard, pressed together in the dark, Halden turned to the team. "She knows we're here, and she's not going to let us leave." No one spoke. In the silence, Halden heard her again, not in his ears, but inside his chest. "You came closer," the voice said gently, "and now you cannot turn back." Inside the sealed chamber, the air was thick and still. The walls no longer pulsed with light. They seemed to wait, just like the team did. After the narrow escape, no one spoke for a long time. Brannick paced like a caged animal, his boots echoing sharply on the metal floor. Tess leaned against the wall, arms crossed tightly, watching Halden from the corner of her eye. Leona sat beside a faintly glowing console, running quiet tests on the samples she had collected earlier. And Oren, fingers flying over his tablet, tried desperately to figure out how they could possibly survive. Halden stood alone, his hand resting on the wall. He didn't know why, but the structure responded to him, like it could hear his thoughts. Or maybe it was her. Every hour, the voice in his mind grew louder, softer in tone, but stronger in presence. She didn't shout. She didn't threaten. She whispered. She promised peace. She promised an end to the war inside him. Leona called softly, breaking the silence. "I've been studying your blood work again, Halden. The change is still happening." She held up a screen. "Your body's adjusting. Your cells are fusing with something alien. But it's not just physical. Your brain waves, they've shifted, like you're syncing with her." Halden turned slowly. His voice was low. "I know." "You're letting her in," Leona said, her voice cracking just slightly. "She's already there," he replied. Oren jumped to his feet. "Then we have to stop it. We can't just let this happen to you. We can't lose you." Brannick added, "We've seen what her influence does. You're not just at risk of turning into one of those creatures, you'll start wanting to." Halden looked at each of them in turn. "Do you think I don't know that? Do you think I want this?" He hesitated. "But the connection, it's more than poison. It's like a bond. She doesn't just infect you, she makes you feel her." And part of me doesn't want to resist. The team fell silent again. Then Tess stepped forward. There has to be a way to break it. Leona nodded. There might be. I found a reference in the colony archives. An old legend the first settlers wrote off as nonsense. They called it the cleft stone. A mineral said to weaken the queen's hold. A rare crystal that vibrates at a frequency that interrupts her signal. Where do we find it? Halden asked. Oren pulled up a map. The nearest known location is a collapsed moon orbiting Verelia. It's unstable. Radiation, gravitational storms. We'd need a miracle to even get near it. Halden didn't blink. Then we go. No one argued. Even Brannick, who usually had a sarcastic comment ready, simply nodded. The decision had been made. The Wren's engines groaned as they took off from the alien fortress and headed toward the dying moon. Through the ship's windows, they could see the broken satellite hanging in space like a shattered jewel, glowing with dangerous beauty. Lightning arced between floating rocks, and massive energy waves pulsed out from its core. The plan was simple. Halden would suit up and retrieve the cleftstone fragment. He volunteered without hesitation. Tess helped him into the suit, checking every latch and seal. As she tightened the straps on his arm, she said, "Don't forget who you are in there." "I won't," he said. But they both knew it wasn't a promise he could keep. Floating in space, tethered to the ship by only a thin line, Halden moved toward the glowing crystal embedded in a spinning rock. The closer he got, the louder the voice became, her voice. "You don't have to fight anymore," she said gently. "I can take the pain away. I can make you whole." Halden hesitated. The cleftstone was right in front of him, glowing with pure white light. It pulsed in rhythm with his heart. His hand trembled. For a moment he wondered what would happen if he let go of the tether, drifted into the silence and let her claim him completely. Then he thought of his team, of Leona's tired eyes, Oren's determination, Tess's steady hands, Brannick's gruff loyalty. He thought of Earth, of the colony, of everything still worth saving. He reached out and grabbed the crystal. The moment his fingers touched it, a blinding light filled his helmet. A sharp pain tore through his chest, and suddenly he was there. Not in space, but in a memory not his own. He saw her, Queen Soraka, before she became what she was now. Her eyes were the same, but softer. She had been alone, betrayed by her kind, and had remade herself into something stronger, something unbreakable. But behind her power was sorrow, endless, aching sorrow. Halden screamed, and then the vision vanished. The team hauled him back aboard. Leona caught him as he stumbled, the cleftstone clutched in his gloved hand. Back in the ship's small medical bay, Leona worked quickly, grinding the crystal and preparing a serum while Oren and Tess monitored the systems. Brannick stood at the hatch, guarding against anything that might follow. As Leona injected the glowing liquid into Halden's bloodstream, his body convulsed. The change was happening fast now. His skin shimmered. His veins glowed. And through it all, her voice kept whispering, "You don't need them. You need me." But as the serum spread, the whispers began to fade. And then, for the first time since Verelia, Halden heard nothing at all. Halden opened his eyes slowly, the brightness around him fading into shapes. The pain had stopped. The voice was gone. For the first time in days, his mind felt like his own. Leona stood beside him, her face pale but hopeful. She had done it. The cleftstone had worked. For now, the Queen's grip on him had been broken. But they all knew it wasn't over. Back in the ship's control room, tension filled the air. Oren was scanning for movement. Brannick paced beside the weapons panel, double-checking everything. Tess kept glancing out the window, watching the stars shift. Then the alarm blared. A massive object dropped out of hyperspace ahead of them. It was the Queen's cruiser. The alien vessel moved slowly but with purpose, like a predator closing in. Dark and smooth, it looked alive, its outer surface writhing like breathing skin. It blocked their path, casting a long shadow across the stars. Inside the ship, lights flickered, systems strained, communications dropped, and then her voice returned, not just in Halden's mind, but in all of theirs. "You cannot run," she said, her voice a soft echo that filled the ship. "You have touched my soul. You are a part of me now." Halden stood, his legs still weak. "She's coming," he said. "And this time, she won't stop." Leona gripped his arm. "You're still recovering. You can't face her again." "I don't have a choice," he said. "If I don't, no one will." He walked to the airlock, ignoring their protests. Before stepping in, he turned to Tess. "You know what to do. If I fail, get out of here. Destroy this ship if you have to." Tess stared at him, jaw tight. "You better not fail, Halden." He gave her the smallest nod, then sealed the hatch. Floating toward the Queen's ship, Halden could feel the pressure building in his chest again. The venom had changed him too much to ever go back to the man he was, but the crystal had given him clarity. He wasn't her puppet anymore, but he was still connected. The bond hadn't broken, it had just quieted. Now it hummed beneath his skin like a dormant storm. A section of the cruiser opened, pulling him in. He landed softly in a chamber that shimmered with soft light. The air smelled like ozone and flowers. There she stood, Queen Soraka, tall, Priggle cloaked in scales that flickered like dark jewels. Her golden eyes locked onto his, and she smiled. "I knew you'd return," she said. "I felt your pain, your confusion, and now you understand, don't you? The war, the loneliness, it doesn't have to continue. Join me. Rule with me. Let us end the chaos together." Halden stepped forward, not in fear, but with purpose. "You don't want peace. You want control." She tilted her head. "Isn't that what your leaders want? What every empire wants?" He shook his head. "Maybe. But I'm not here to follow them, or you." She reached out a hand. "You still carry my mark. I can feel it. You can't deny what we are now." He looked down at his arm, where faint lines still glowed under the skin. "No, I can't deny it. But I can choose what to do with it." From his belt, he pulled a final fragment of the cleft stone. It pulsed in his palm, glowing brighter the closer. He stepped to her. Her smile faded. She could feel it too. "You would destroy me?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. "No," he said, "but I will free myself." He raised the stone high, and it blazed with light. The sound was like 1,000 voices, shouting at once. Soraka screamed, not in pain, but in loss. The bond between them snapped like a rope breaking under pressure. Around her, the chamber cracked. Light poured in from the ceiling as the ship's structure buckled. She staggered, reaching for him. "I didn't want to be alone again," she said. Her voice trembled. Halden looked at her, not with hate, but with something close to sorrow. "Maybe you never had to be, but you made your choice." He turned and ran as the ship began to collapse. Debris fell around him. Energy surged through the walls. As he reached the exit hatch, he launched himself into space just as the cruiser exploded in a wave of light and silence. The Wren picked him up moments later. Brannick pulled him aboard. Leona ran a scanner over him, tears in her eyes. "You're back," she whispered. Tess gave him a nod and Oren pumped a fist in the air. "That's how we end a nightmare." As the ship turned away from the remains of the alien vessel, Halden sat quietly, staring at the stars. They were free, but something inside him still felt empty. In the weeks that followed, the colony slowly began to rebuild. Those who had been transformed slowly returned to themselves. The Queen's influence had lifted, but the memories remained, of her voice, her touch, her sorrow. Halden stood alone one night, looking out at the stars above the planet. He felt the last echo of her presence fade from his mind like the final note of a forgotten song. "You were wrong," he said quietly. "I was never yours. And yet, He couldn't help but wonder if a part of her would always remain, a whisper in the silence, a reminder that even the darkest hearts once longed for something more.